Welcome to another episode of Waves of Wisdom. Today in this episode, I am going to talk with a prominent figure in the speaking industry, Mr. Andrew Bryant, who had been a past president of APSS Singapore, as well as some other associations. He's an author of 4 books on leadership, especially known as a self-leadership evangelist. Welcome to my podcast.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Andrew, how are you today?
Oh, well, the superficial answer to that question is always amazing. But if you want to dig deeper, grateful you and I are having this conversation in Maldives. It's my first time to Maldives. We did a speech this morning, which I believe went well, so I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah. Welcome to Maldives. In fact, I was lucky enough to attend and listen to your speech, and I would say it gave me a lot of insights into which even I grabbed some of your books and works, and I have been following you on LinkedIn for over 5 years now. And I think you are doing an amazing job in sending this message of self-leadership and the importance of leaders leading themselves. I think that was your message today as well, right?
Sure.
Can you touch base on your workings and what you are currently doing in this space?
Well, I think the thing that always motivates me with an audience is to get people to wake up and take ownership with their own lives. So the way I see it is that we have a choice. A lot of our life, we're a passenger. Things just, we don't choose our birth. We're born. We don't get to choose our DNA, our early schooling. And so we're generally on this set of railway tracks. And there's some point in your life, there's a moment, there's an epiphany, a wake up where you start to take ownership and you start to take agency towards living your own life. And that requires a level of courage because we're born into frames of nationality, religion, your parents wanting you to be a doctor or whatever. And you've lived somebody else's narrative. And to choose your own narrative and to live that truth, it's empowering. And the people that help to do it are doing amazing things and carrying that forwards. So, that's my mission. Wake up. It's your life. Nobody's going to ride up on a white horse and rescue you. You have to decide yourself what you want to do, and you need to have to go out and get that, right? And I've done that. I've practiced what I preached, and I'm living the dream.
Wonderful. And Andrew, I also know that you are not really a speaker, or you didn't intend to do what you are doing right now when you started your career. In fact, you were trained in physiotherapy, I guess, at the beginning, right? So tell us a little bit more about what was your childhood dreams and what was your career aspirations, and at what point did you pivot?
So I remember, at infant school, was my mum had come in for a parent-teacher conference, and she was kind of proud of me, and I was like, well, why? She said, well, the teacher was very impressed, that you had, you painted a fireman and said you wanted to be a fireman, and when asked why, it's because I wanted to help people. So clearly that was a theme. As I got older, I thought I wanted to be a doctor. I was a pretty good science student, went to an English grammar school, and thought, well, okay, I'll be a doctor. But then they merged my boys' grammar school with the girls' high school before my A-levels, and I'll leave it to your watchers to be curious about what distracted me. But I was distracted. I didn't get the grades for medicine, but I got into physiotherapy. And I'm very grateful for that because physiotherapy is a very practical science. We help people, rehabilitation. But what I took away from physiotherapy was observation. As a physio, somebody has a hip operation and you watch them walk afterwards and you can identify which muscles are not working, or a footballer has twisted their ankle, or a ballet dancer is getting repeated injury, and you have to watch them to see what they're doing to diagnose that and then offer a solution. And the maxim in medicine is prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. And so when I did the pivot was when I moved from England to Australia, and I'd helped sports teams to win. And I'd shifted from rehabilitation to more sports psychology or training and preparation. And I helped a sports team win, forgive me, and the managing director of the sponsoring company, sports sponsored by business, he called me up and said, "You helped my team win. Now come and work with my management team because they need some work." I went, "Well, okay, I could probably do that." And I went in with the tabula rasa, the blank slate, and I just watched. And I could see from their communication and their behavior, and I could map out, these are some of the issues you've got. And he said, "That's exactly what we've got." And then I designed a program to address those issues, just as the way I would coach sports people. I coached leaders. And it worked. A surprise to me, I wasn't surprised to him, but it was a surprise to me. It was a nice surprise. But I had some imposter syndrome, right? Because I wasn't trained as a management consultant. So after a couple of these assignments, because he referred me to a friend who referred me to a friend, I thought, well, I better get the right certification. And you know how certification is such a frame. You have to have the right piece of paper, right? So I went off to do an MBA at University of Western Australia. And I was enjoying that, but I found it very prescription-based, right? Just as, you bring in one of the big consulting companies and they go, "Well, this is the way we do it," right? And they prescribe it. Either we're going to centralize or we're going to decentralize. So I started arguing with my professor of organizational leadership and psychology. And he enjoyed my arguments, it was a good professor for that. He wanted you to interact. And one day he said to me, "Andrew, you got some good ideas. You should do your own research and write your own book." And the rest, as they say, is history. I'm working on my 5th book right now.
Amazing. And this is you are English by birth, and then you went into Australia. I think this is where you got from, where you are accent from, right? Australia.
Well, I could turn on my Australian accent really strongly if you like, but no, I had a quite posh English grammar school accent, and I went to Australia in 1985, mostly to surf and windsurf. And I remember, big wave at Margaret River in the southwest of WA, and I said, "Oh, that was a jolly good wave." And somebody went, "Can you do a bit surfing still?" No,
You just tried some in Maldives.
no, I broke my neck and my back windsurfing a wave, and so yeah, my body retired me. So yeah, all I do now is go for long treks in Portugal. Yeah.
Okay, right. So now, how your journey, this journey has evolved from the time you wanted to become a management consultant, and up to how many years now you have been doing what you are doing now?
So I've been speaking globally for 26 years this year, and I think coming to Maldives, I think this is my 39th country. I'll have to do a quick tally up. I think this is my 39th country that I've spoken in. Yes.
This is great, right? So, what was that fuel, or what is that thing which keeps you going without stopping this? Some people comes into even the professional speaking business and then they quit after a few years. You must have seen about in that area, right? So, what keep you going? How far do you think you are going to go?
Okay. For the real story, so I need to take it back to 2000. So as a physiotherapist, I worked in hospitals and then sports clinics in England. And then when I went to Australia, again, I worked in clinics. And then I got my own clinic, and I had 3 clinics. And then I wanted to expand and have a wellness center. And I invested all my money in creating a wellness center, which is like a gym for people that don't normally go to gyms, right? So, the gym's full of those big guys with huge muscles in front of the mirror. I wanted a gym for people who were worried about getting osteoporosis. So I had this vision, and I invested all my money and time into building this wellness center. But then the fitness industry in Australia was disrupted by low-cost gyms coming in from outside the country. And the business was disrupted. And so in the year 2000, I went from wealthy, owning houses and driving Range Rovers, to $300,000 of debt. I ended up losing, cost me a marriage because I was miserable. I lost my dream and vision of being the CEO and I was living in a backpackers hostel in King's Cross, which is not a nice or wasn't a nice area, said me that. And, I really thought my life was over. And I went up into the Blue Mountains, lovely mountain range, the big hills outside of Sydney, and I'm doing a trek, and I sat on this rock, and I, I mean, I wasn't purposely meditating, but I was in that meditative state, but my eyes wide open, and I got clear as if I was looking at it. I saw a pond, and I saw a droplet hitting that pond and the ripples going. Now, I'd already started giving some talks when I was playing the fitness center because, I had insights on health. And when I saw these ripples, I went, that's my purpose, right? It's not about me being the CEO. It's about me influencing other people, and those ripples come out. And that really is my purpose, right? Whether it's a cliche or it's a vision. I don't think about it much, except when I'm asked this question: what keeps me going? Is the people that I touch and influence. They write to me, they thank me. I get invited to go around the world and speak because somebody read my book. I went to Iceland a couple of years ago because somebody read one of my books 10 years previously. And so it's being in front of an audience I see as what is such a privilege to have that moment to speak into somebody's life. And, there were 350 people in the audience today. If one of them changes their life and their trajectory because of something I said, well, then that's a ripple in the pond. And, I've spoken to much bigger audiences than today. And that's what keeps me going. And so it's a huge privilege to do this. And I'm grateful for that privilege. And that's what keeps me going.
Thank you for all the good work you are doing for the humanity. And I think this is the reason why I am also conducting this podcast interviews lately. And I find it fascinating in people whom I have called, who has become unretirable. So I see you as someone who is really unretirable. And this is actually a common character or common phenomenon I see across the people whom I categorize as unretirable. They have found their purpose and they are living their purpose. So I'm wondering if living with a purpose gives you a reason not to become unretirable.
But not to become retired. Well, I mean, you've got to define what retirement is. I mean, retirement is stopping, having to work, and choosing not to work. I mean, who was it that said, that the work is love made manifest, right? So this is a work to me. So, I retired from having to work a long time ago. Now, I still have, kids at university, and so I still need to generate revenue. I have, despite going through a couple of financial crises in my life, I put some money aside and was able to buy a property in Portugal, cut down my living expenses compared to Singapore. So, I'm fairly frugal, and one of my great pleasures in life is travel, and one of the big plus sides of being a global speaker is somebody else buys the ticket, and then I go somewhere, and if it's a nice if it's a nice venue, my wife comes and joins me. My wife is here. Surprise, my wife is here with me in the Maldives. But I was in Hong Kong a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, I don't want to go there. So it's not work for me.
Well, this is not for honeymoon. I guess you are, but you were second honeymoon.
Well, my wife, we're going to be here for Valentine's Day. We've been married 10 years. I dropped into a thief from Lux Resorts, and hopefully he does something nice. Good idea. Take credit for it. So
I'm sure they will. I'll take credit because Lux, the theme of Lux Resort is also about celebrating life.
Yes, it's about it. And what a great alignment of missions. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We move up from safety and security, up through self-esteem, and right up to self-actualization. Self-actualization is living a life of purpose, a life of meaning, and we have to generate that meaning for ourselves. Something take community from some organized faith or conviction, but I think people who are self-actualized find their own meaning. And so, why retire, right? When I'm not on the road, I'm writing books or going for a walk and looking after my own health. So I'm out of the 9 to 5 grind. I mean, I've been out of that for a long, long time. And if I stopped working, I think the entropy would kick in, and I need. I gave up alcohol 18 months ago, for health reasons. I was finding it was starting to slow me down. I wasn't recovering like I used to, and I had a health checkup, and they said, "Oh, it's probably a good idea, that you lose some weight." And I went, "Well, I can't lose weight and drink, because when I drink, I like the cheese, the wine." And making those intentional choices. So as we speak, I'm version 6.3 of myself now, which means, or 63. And so I expect to be around, late 80s, early 90s minimum. And so I can keep doing this. I can keep traveling. I can keep speaking, and now we have virtual. I don't even have to leave my house to talk to people. We're talking Maldives, and people are going to be watching this from all around the globe, I imagine. So no reason to stop. And I think nothing worse than to just sort of sitting on a sofa, watch TV, and be a passive consumer. For what a sad end.
I think you are right. This is where a lot of where next generation X and and even Generation Z going forward will think very differently about retirement than the baby boomers and everybody. But you have adopted, I guess, right? So with this new technology and everything. What do you think is the future of retirement is going to be like? Do people need to, especially this message is for people who are in their mid-careers, or when is the right time for them to start thinking about their retirement, or what I call is the unretiring plan?
Okay. So in terms of the coaching I've done with senior leaders, I've noticed a little bit of a pattern, right? So people have this goal to achieve some level of career success. So let's say it's to join the C-suite, the CBO, CEO, chief people officer, but they get there, and then they haven't thought about after that, and so that adrenaline rush is gone. It's a bit like wives plan the wedding, but they don't plan the life after the wedding, right? The wedding's spectacular. And the reason I had that thought is we walked past a wedding display on our way to life today, right? So it's all about the wedding, but not about the marriage afterwards. And I think a lot of us think about this career goal. I want to achieve this title and this income or this house or whatever. And they don't think about what's after that. And their identity gets very wrapped up into the title. So you'd notice that, majors and brigadiers, and we have a good friend who's a brigadier. They maintain that title after they're no longer a brigadier because they're so wrapped up into that military title. Doctors always, they stop practicing medicine, but they're still a doctor because that's very much their identity from. I think, if you're watching this and you're wondering when's the right time to retire, the right time to retire from having to work is when you've actually got an identity that is going to sustain you to that. Because if your identity is locked into the work that you do, if you stop that, you die very quickly. And in fact, dentists have terrible mortality rates. Doctors generally die very quickly after they retire because they've got nothing to live for. So at some point,
So that is where the purpose of life becomes so important, right? As you mentioned earlier.
you've got to find some value. And typically, the passion and purpose that keeps people going is one that goes beyond themselves, right? So, initially, mid-career, right, where, it's all about us. I want to buy the nice suits, or I want to buy the nice car, or I want to make sure my wife has the jewelry, or whatever it is driving that. But we transcend that at some point and find that our real value is the impact we have on others. And that is so nurturing and sustaining. And that's what keeps people going. I mean, you look at, a few months ago, Jimmy Carter, the president, former president of the United States, you would think becoming president of the United States is pretty much a career highlight. But it was what he did after his presidency which was so impactful, building house for humanity. And from that respect, I think he's a real role model of going beyond, whereas other people, their whole identity is wrapped around would be the president or the past president. Or the past president. Yeah, well, I'm a past president. Yeah, so yeah, past president of Singapore and of Spain. But yeah, no, I'm not even wearing my president's pin today, right?
Yeah. So one of the words you introduced just now is really one of the questions which I wanted to ask in the next as well, is about passion. Yeah. How important it is that for us to keep going for the later years of our life and continuing, and like you said, to create an impact in the world, to align our passion with our purpose. How important that is.
Well, it's a leading question because the way you frame that is, I have to agree with you. It's important. I quite like the word enthusiasm because it comes from the Greek entheo, spirit filled. And I'm actually not a religious person. But, the sense of, for me, there's a sense of spirit. I mean, in fact, the word spirit actually comes spiritus, which means breath. And as long as I'm breathing, right, then I'm turning up. So I think when people lose their enthusiasm, when they lose that inner glow, right, you see people with the bright, shiny eyes and in their old age, or latter years perhaps, is because that they're breathing in life. So passion is an important word. I just think it tends to get overused. And I think also, all of these entrepreneurs say, find your passion and work on that, and you never have to worry about money. Well, that's not necessarily true. And so that's why I guess the word passion I'm a little sensitive around, because you find something you're good at, right? Very important. Find something you're good at. Because if you're not good at it, you're not going to persevere, right? Find something you're good at. Find something you like doing. 'Cause we don't always like and love doing what we're good at. Sometimes we're good at something, but we don't like it. And then the third point is find something people will pay you for or adds value to people's life. So now you have, the three circles of the Ikigai, which is the Japanese overlapping Venn diagram, right? The fourth circle, of course, is a community-based one that adds value to the world. So passion is, that joint, competency plus love of that competency plus adding value, right? And then there's a return on value. And so, I mentioned I still need to generate revenue because I'm paying for university fees. But for me, revenue is also about a value exchange. I will do pro bono work around for the right cause if I'm valued for. I mean, if I can add value and that value is recognized.
Yes.
Right. I never believe in giving something to somebody if there isn't a clear, contract around the reciprocity of that value.
Correct.
Yeah.
Something. So I think that is That's a beautiful way you have put that, actually, how you connected with your passion or what you are good at.
Yeah.
And into something you can actually contribute and add value to the community, and in return, they value.
Yes.
So value can be in different forms.
Yeah.
So how are the ways people value your work in the way?
Well, you asking me for this podcast, the fact that you followed me for 6 years on LinkedIn, I mean, I'm not driven by ego. I mean, I'm not ego needy, right? But it's still nice to know that somebody recognizes you, right? Why is business class so popular, rather than economy? Now, sure, the seats are bigger, the food is better, but when you get on a flight, if you're economy, you're a seat number, you're 27 Ks, right? You get on and you're a number, and if you overhear the stewardesses or the steward, they're saying, oh yeah, tomato juice for 27K. If you're in business class, oh, welcome back, Mr. Bryant. Here's your seat, Mr. Bryant. Now, I don't know a human being on the planet who doesn't enjoy that level of recognition, right? Right? So when I walk into somewhere and they know who I am, they know what I've done, it's a warm feeling. I kid thee not. It's, at the same time, I live in a little village in Portugal. Nobody knows who I am or whatever, and I'm cool with that as well. But if I'm going to add value, if they know who I am, then I have a leverage, right? That is because I already have the ethos, and I have that executive presence capital or influence capital to make a difference. So, yeah.
Yeah, and also it is important that when we talk about unretirable person or unretirement, it's going forward, of course, like you said, if you haven't invested in stocks or real estate or some ways of getting some passive income, you also need to keep on making some money. And one of the best ways is, I guess, adding wealth to others, so they will pay you back even in financial terms. Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and then there's relationship. And I mean, I think the very important thing, right? So, we know from research, and when I wrote my 2012 book on self-leadership, there was a whole section that actually the US publishers took out because there was kind of an inverse curve around, an upside down bell curve around religion. And we find that people who have researched their own religion and, really thought about, this is my faith, this is what I'm going to practice, have high self-leadership. People who've chosen to give up on any kind of organized religion, generally actually quite well educated on the texts of their religion, that they chose their practice. But they chose their apostasy. They chose to reject religion because it's a thought process, right? So they have high self-leadership. The people who are just going to church or mosque or temple because that's what people do actually have quite low self-leadership, right?
Some of the like culturally with this.
Yeah, well, they're culturally religious because so they're not challenging us, right? So I think when we choose to be the driver of our own life, whether we accept or reject the religion of our birth or we choose atheism, it's that cognitive experience. And the hard thing for the generations coming up right now is to know what is my truth, because it's filtered through social media, right? It's not real unless you've done an Instagram post on it, right? Or TikTok or whatever. So, they're externalizing their identity very much. And the real work of being a human being as opposed to a human doing is who am I and what value do I add, and what's important to me, irregardless of those external criteria, right?
I think you explained it very well. Yeah, I think we are in the middle of our conversation, and it will be unfair for me not to ask, and also not for my audience, if I don't ask about your upcoming book. Or can you explain a little bit what the theme is around and how it can benefit your audience?
So I'm very fortunate that Wiley, who is a top publisher, came to me and asked me if I was working on anything. And I was like, well, I'm flattered. And yeah, actually I am. And they said, oh, well, tell us what you're working on. I said, well, when I coach very high-performing individuals, they often say to me something like, Andrew, my biggest fear is not living up to my potential. And I thought, well, that's interesting that people that externally seem successful still have an internal, calibration that there must be more. Now, that's distinct from imposter syndrome, which is an external, right? I feel like an imposter because I'm comparing myself with some of the extra. But the internal potential, there must be more that I have to achieve. Secondly, we're at an HR conference. I speak at HR conferences around the world. And human resource people are always, how do we get the potential out of our people? How do we get the maximum potential? And then being in my seventh decade, I'm concerned as a father, what's going to happen to my children in terms of what's the potential for humanity? Are we going to destroy ourselves? Are we going to break up back into Mars? Well, I don't think it's going to be. I mean, we've got this planet, right? But there's a rise of right-wing nationalism around the world, and people wanting to create insular states and with their own private. What's the future for humanity? And yet you mentioned AI, biotech, what is the future? So my questions were around potential. And it dawned on me in a conversation with a good friend, fellow speaker, Frederick Harron. We were chatting about that. This was my inner theme, and I said, well, when you come up with an idea, you conceptualize it. If you make it important to you, you prioritize it, and if you want to make it bigger, you maximize it. So what you need to do with your potential is to potentialize it, and so I Wiley said, we love it. We love the idea. And they said, when can you get us the manuscript? And I said, I don't know, middle of next year, which will be July this year. And so I'm on notice that I have to deliver that manuscript. It will be published in January 2026, and it's called Potentialize.
This is very interesting, and I think I 100% as a executive who has worked for last like 10, 15 years at executive level positions. This really relates to me as well. This is an inner question which I always ask: is there more potential to be?
Yeah.
What can I do more? In terms of adding value to others, in terms of contributing to the world, and even I'm at a stage now in my life which I started questioning what I can do to continuously. And I think that is what led to even us forming all this Professional Speakers Association, getting the community together to ensuring actually we take other people who are interested in a leading life of potential, highlighted with us when we go along. I think I'm really, really excited to this book and reading the book. I'm sure my audience as well, they will be very much willing to look forward for how to potentialize themselves, I guess. Um, what will this book be need to high level or executive level people who are in their career, and how can it relate to my topic of becoming unretirable?
Oh, well, I think it's very correlated to your topic because you're living a life of potential. You're not going to retire. Uh, I think retirement it really is a thing of the past. I mean, it really was. You worked X number of years and retired at 65, and then it changed. What's beautiful about the book, from my perspective, is because I'd only got an idea when Wiley came to me. Typically you write the manuscript and then go to publisher and say, "Will you publish this?" They came to me. And so I went, okay, and it's quite nice that I don't have a fixed idea. So I've been interviewing people around the world. I've interviewed adventurers. I've been experts, Paralympians, gold medal winners, gold, and people who've really maximized their potential, and asked them some tough questions about how they perceive their potential. And what's come out of that is a model and some strategies that, as people read the book, people who have struggled, what is my purpose, what is next, what is possible. I think there'll be some inspiration in terms of, somebody else has done it, so therefore I can do it too. And also, some ideas on potentializing, because there's nothing worse than the number of people who say, "No, I wish I'd read the book," and I'm like, "Well, why don't you?" Right? And just the other day, somebody said to me, "Oh, what you said really resonated. I had this similar experience, and this happened." And I said, "Well, have you written a book about it?" And they went, "No." Well, when are you going to start? And they were like, "I hadn't even thought about it." So I know they say everybody's got a book in, so that is like an untapped potential in you. Well, yeah, it was a her in this particular case. It was a her in this particular case. Yeah, I mean, we all have a story, right, Dave? And as speakers, we're storytellers, and we heard from one of the speakers today at this HR conference about there'll be libraries, but there should be human libraries. So they going, seeing people, and listening to their life story, and just as podcasts are going, you're tapping on my experience. Hopefully, my experience will help somebody watching this, listening to this, that it gives them an inspiration or an information to
act and become for potentialize themselves. Exactly. Yeah. So that is about the theme of my current book, which I'm also working on, which is Unretirable, and which hopefully will come out and before end of this year. So, but my this podcast, Waves of Wisdom, will continue, and this is one question I ask from every person coming on my podcast. What is that one wisdom, one which you have got and which you like to pass on to the next generation?
Well, you'll find this funny because I'm not particularly religious, is that I have a personal mantra that blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be bent out of shape. And, as a young man, I was struggling and grinding and, trying to find my way in the world. And I would be very reactive. And even some people maybe watching this might have, seen me in a much more reactive alpha male mode. And now, the wisdom of age is, blessed are the flexible. I can find different ways of getting there. I don't have to force. And, if you force it, you break it. And the Navy SEALs, the U.S. Navy SEALs have this mantra that slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And so, I really think that if you feel like you're struggling, that doesn't mean give up. But if you're struggling, find a way. The Brazilians have a different word. It's called jogo de cintura, which is the flexibility of the game. And you see this in America, in Brazilian football. Won the World Cup 5 times. So that beauty of the Brazilian football is it's flexible, it's fluid. And for me, that's the wisdom. Is I grew up British and, we're very rigid and organized. And yet life is not like that. Life is fluid.
Life is weird.
And that's the wisdom.
I think that's a fantastic wisdom, and now I know the secret of one of my favorite sports teams, Brazil. I always would support them on match. I'm in both cups, and now I know the secret because they are fluid, so they can find a way around to. So it's a good anatomy, I think, where you can hit the goal. So. Andrew, what will be the final words from whatever we had discussed and from your book and everything? What you can do? Want to tell our audience?
Well, I thought that was the final word. These I wouldn't want to tell the audience either.
All right.
Right? So, and the reason being is, but if you tell people something, they don't pay attention, right? I don't like to be told. Do you like to be told? None of us like to be told. We like to discover. And so if you like to discover, if you want to find the truths, is just be curious. Be curious. Keep your eyes open, right? There's the answer's there. Something more often than not, the answer's inside you. All right? So reflection or observation is, I'm not going to tell you what to do. You know the answer.
All right. Thank you very much, Andrew. It has been a great pleasure talking to you on this. And for my audience, until we come back with another episode, be curious, as Andrew says, and find your potential and potentialize yourself. Have a wonderful day until they come back again. Thank you.